Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ninja of the Woods. I'm your host, Big Jim. Tonight's episode is entitled Haunted Objects. This will be a series of shows entitled Haunted Objects, so be sure to look out for the titles. Alright, we're going to hop in right now to our next story. Haunted Objects. And tonight, the story is going to be about a very, very famous case. Coming from the case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren. If you don't know who Ed and Lorraine Warren are, you should Google them. They are, I guess you could classify them as a ghost hunter. Ed is a demonologist, and his wife Lorraine is a psychic medium. She communicates with spirits on the other side, the other plane. But this story here of Annabelle the doll was made into a movie, and I know a lot of you that are listening has probably, at least 90% of you have seen this movie at one point in time. But the story goes that the doll was bought at a hobby store for a young college student. Her mother had bought it and give it to her as a present for, her going to college. The girl was in nursing school. She had a roommate at the time. For a while, there was nothing went on. Neither one of them noticed anything, but after a little bit, they began to notice that the doll seemed to move on its own. It happened more often. After a week, it began to seem like it was fully mobile. It was completely moving on its own. They would leave the doll on a bed, come home to find it on the couch, set it by the door, and it would appear in the kitchen. Just things like that. Things like that, in your mind, you always try to come up with an excuse because of the fear of not knowing what's going on while you're away from your house. It's kind of scary in itself. But they had a male friend that would come over a lot, and his name was Lucas, or Luke, as they called him. He noticed the doll, and it put off an eerie feeling to him, and he just flat out told the girls that it was evil. He felt evil from the doll. But neither one of them believed in that kind of stuff, so, there must have been an explanation, is what they said, for it all. They began, after a while, what really got them worried is when they began to find these little bitty notes all around the house from this doll. And it went on for quite a while, until one night they both came home from their class, and they see Annabelle, and she has this, what looked like to them, blood on her hands. And they couldn't find no blood anywhere at all in the house or in their apartment where they were living. And it seemed like it was coming from the doll itself. That's what scared them pretty bad. So they got to looking into finding someone that could come and see what was in there. So they, from a friend of a friend, they find this psychic medium. She sat with the doll in one room for a little bit, and then when she come back, she had something to tell the women there, that there was a 7-year-old girl on the property there that had died in a field where the apartment they live in sits now. When the doll came there, the girl's spirit latched on to the doll, and she liked the girls, and she didn't want to leave. She wanted to stay with them. So these women, not knowing what they were doing, stupidly agreed to let the spirit stay with them in the doll. That right there is where they messed up at. Because I know for a fact that demonic entities will make themselves seem like they are a child. They act okay and they act nice and innocent until you openly tell them that they could stay somewhere. And that is where a lot of these stories people make mistakes of doing. Because I know firsthand that these things are not to be trusted. They are pure evil. They come from hell itself. And I'm sure a lot of you will agree with me. Anybody that's done any paranormal research, which was my main field before I got into Sasquatch and Yowie and all those other things that everyone calls Bigfoot. But we'll leave that for another time. Okay, so it says they let her stay, and she attached herself to the doll, supposedly now. And now, after they told her that, the activity picked up and started getting worse to where they would hear footsteps, and the little girl's spirit supposedly started scratching Luke, their male friend that would come and hang out with them, and stuff like that. After a while, they got scared. Finally, they tried to get a pastor. They wouldn't let the Catholic Church would not let them do a exorcism on the doll because of the fact, I don't think that they were Catholic. I think they were. I'm not for sure, but anyways, the pastor put them in touch with Mr. and Mrs. Ed and Lorraine Warren. After staying at the apartment, doing some research on their own, they're with the doll. Lorraine found out that it was actually a demon that attached itself to the doll. They had given it permission. So finally, they got someone to come in, a priest, and do an exorcism on the doll and the apartment. The Warrens took the doll with them, and as they were on their way home with the doll now, Ed decided to drive on the back roads going home because he knew that this demon in this thing was powerful and it could do things, physical things, like make the car stop, make the steering go out, the brakes go out, anything that those things want to do, they'll do it. So it started doing that. The vehicle had stopped a couple times and wouldn't start. So when before they actually got it started back, Ed got the idea to get some holy water out of his bag, and he sprinkled it on the doll. This calmed down the activity long enough for them to get it to their house, where the priest had blessed I guess you would say, a little bitty case for them to display the doll in. They put like rosaries on it, a couple other things to contain the demon into that little tiny space, and it sits there in their museum now that they have at their home, that they allow people to come into and view their items and stuff. They have signs up everywhere that says do not touch. Over the years, they've acquired many and many objects over the years, and one day I hope myself to maybe even get to go there and go through their museum. Guys, I got one more story of haunted objects for this series, and I think I'm going to just go ahead and go through that one real fast with you guys. The next one is Robert the Doll. Now, I know a lot of you have heard of Robert the Doll. It's a very interesting story. The rundown on Robert the Doll is there was a plantation owner who owned a slave. She was put in a position of like a nanny after their little boy was born. But before that, she'd had a child of her own, and the people that owned the slave, this woman, this nanny, she was pregnant, and they kept her out in a building. She got dehydrated. The baby was born. She wasn't fed good enough to keep the baby alive, so the baby passed away. Not long after that, the woman that owned the slaves, her baby was born. They named him after his father, Robert Eugene Otto, and she took care of the baby. She fell in love with him, and the woman seen them practicing Santeria. Santeria is a form of voodoo. It comes from Cuba, where they sacrifice animals and stuff like that. Long story short, she was upset with it after she seen it. She decided to send them back to where they came from. But the nanny begged to stay with the baby, Robert Jr. So when she found out she was having to leave, she gave the little boy a doll that she had made. And over time, the little boy would constantly talk to this doll, pack it around through the town and talk to it like it was a person. The little boy said that there was, that the doll was pretty much alive. Long story short, guys, this went on all the way to the time that the guy passed away. In 1974, he was found dead in an attic where the doll was kept. And then the doll was eventually turned over to the East Martello Museum in Florida. Guys, I'm going to try to maybe get one more story for you guys later. As of now, today, this will be the end of our show, guys. For more videos, guys, please don't forget to check out thecryptocrew.com. You can also subscribe to Crypto Watch on youtube.com. And don't forget about us on facebook.com/Ninja of the Woods. Tap on the message button to report a sighting, guys. Keep the comments coming. Thank you for the views, guys. I love you guys. God bless, and have a wonderful day.